yeah, the reference table. Not the package.
So what we're going to talk about today is sort of some of the structures found in various plant tissues that allow for photosynthesis to occur, that allow gases to enter the plant, and materials to be moved around inside of the plant, things that are necessary as a part of photosynthesis. So I will talk a little bit about some of those things.
Mr. Duros, I found a thing that's involved within science.
What's that?
Capillary.
Oh!
Yeah, there's some relation here to stuff you learned.
So we might as well just take their science period.
Sure. All right, so in a plant, whether it's a tree or a flower or whatever it is, materials need to be moved around within that plant. So water is obviously one of those important materials. Water is necessary for photosynthesis. How does water enter a plant?
From the root.
Yeah, and it's absorbed into the roots. Okay? It's absorbed into the roots of the plant. And then obviously that water needs to be brought to other parts of the plant. Now, a plant doesn't have a heart to pump fluids around through the plant. So we could ask the question, well, how does the water actually move from the roots up to the leaves and to the branches and all the other parts? And it moves through vessels, just like in an animal there are blood vessels which carry liquid around. In plants they also have vascular tissue, vessels we would call them, that move things around. And one of the main forces that moves material around the plants is this process called transpiration. Transpiration is the movement of water from the roots to the leaves and eventually out of the plant. Okay, water comes in and leaves the plant. And as that water leaves through the leaves, as it evaporates from the leaves, it sort of pulls up water due to some of the forces connecting water molecules to each other. So forces of cohesion, which water molecules are sort of sticky to each other. And so as you pull a plant, if you imagine pulling a water molecule out of the leaf, it pulls with it the next one, and that pulls on the one behind it. Sort of that pull, because of those forces between water molecules, helps move this water up the plant. Water in plants moves through the vascular tissue that's called the xylem. Okay. And other things that are dissolved in the water also move through the xylem. And then the other major material that needs to be moved around the plant are the sugars. Because where are sugars produced? Produced in the leaves, in the green areas of the plant. But all parts of the plant actually need those sugars. They rely on them for energy. Okay? And so those sugars need to be moved around within the plant. Okay? Sometimes they move from the leaves to the stem or to the roots. Other times they go in the opposite direction. The tubes that the sugars move is called the phloem. Okay? If we look at some diagrams here, if you look at sort of a cross section of the stem of a plant, what you have is the outer layers, the epidermis, the sort of bark of the plant, if it's a woody plant, on the outside. In the center you have what's called the pith. Then you have the cortex, and then within that cortex are these bundles of these vascular tissues of xylem and phloem. Okay, and you could see those here in these little bundles, and that's one of the things we're going to look at tomorrow when we do our lab. We're going to look at some of this vascular tissue. If you look, the xylem is carrying water, and it always carries water up because water enters through the roots. Carried up through the branches, through the trees. Now, the phloem carries sugars, and so sometimes they need to be carried up or down or in various ways. So that varies depending on the needs of the plant, the needs of that tissue. Okay? And then in between them is this tissue called cambium. So transpiration is movement of water from the roots up through the plant and out through the leaves. Involves several forces. Okay? And they're forces that have to do mainly with the properties of the water molecule. As we know, water molecules are polar molecules, and water molecules tend to stick together. They have surface tension. Okay? And so whenever you have a narrow tube, okay, water will just naturally move up that narrow tube. It's called capillary action. And it happens because the water molecules stick to each other, but that's called cohesion, but also water molecules stick to other materials, the sides of the tube. As you remember probably from 7th grade, when we look at a graduated cylinder, you have to read the meniscus. What is the meniscus?
A little like U at the bottom line.
It's that curve. So why does it form that curve? Yeah, because the water molecules, because of this adhesion, are sticking to the sides of that tube, and it forms that curve. So both of those things, so water sticks to the sides of the xylem, it sticks together. There's also pressure from the roots. As water's entering the roots through osmosis, that exerts pressure, forcing water molecules up into the xylem. And then there's also a pulling force. As water evaporates from the leaves, creates a partial vacuum that sort of acts like a straw, sucking water up this tube. And so those forces are the forces that allow water to move up the stem of the plant. Okay? It's a mixture of all those forces together. Okay? So cohesion is attraction between like molecules. Adhesion is the attraction between unlike molecules. Okay, so this diagram here just shows all the various forces in terms of pressure that allows water to travel up up from the roots into the leaves and so forth. You have transpiration, allowing water to evaporate and pulling water with it. You have the cohesion and adhesion of the water molecules in the xylem. Okay? And then you have the pressure of water moving into the roots, forcing that water up. So all of those various factors provide for that transpiration. When we look at a leaf and we look at sort of a cross section of a leaf, we were to take a leaf, cut it, and then look inside of it, we see that it's made of several layers, several different parts, and they have different functions. We'll look at this tomorrow.
Kind of like a rock.
A rock cross section? No. So this is the top of the leaf. This is the bottom of the leaf. We're looking sort of inside of it. And we have various parts of a leaf that are important. On the top, covering the top and the bottom, leaves have a waxy, what's called a cuticle. It's kind of a waterproof layer that it eliminates the loss of water during dry conditions or other times. So it sort of waterproofs the leaf so it loses less water. Okay, then we have the epidermis layer, the upper epidermis, the lower epidermis. Okay, those are the outermost layer of cells in the leaf. And then we have a couple other layers. You have the palisades layer and the spongy layer. You can see these are made of cells. The palisades layer is made of these elongated sort of compact cells across the top. And then the spongy layer, the cells are not as neatly. They're rounder cells. There's some space between them. There's air gaps. Okay? Moving through the spongy layer are these bundles of tissue. If you look at a leaf and you see the veins of a leaf, that's what they are. They're these bundles of vascular tissue. There's the xylem, and there's also the phloem in there. And then on the bottom side of leaves, okay, there's also some openings to the outside. Okay, these openings are called the stoma, singular stomata. And on either side of one of these openings are two special cells called guard cells. And these guard cells, they can open and close to seal up this opening depending on the needs of the plant. Okay. It's another view of it. Okay. So we have the cuticle, this waxy covering preventing water loss, the epidermis, the upper layer and the lower layer. Palisades layer, this is the layer where most photosynthesis takes place. You can see these cells of the palisades layer are packed with chloroplasts so that they can absorb sunlight, allowing photosynthesis to take place. Okay. You have the vascular tissue, okay, which is not really shown in this view. It was shown in the previous one. The phloem, which carries sugar, the xylem, which carries water and minerals, and then the spongy layer. This is mainly used for gas exchange because as gases enter the leaves, they can move through these spaces and diffuse into the cells so that the plant cells can get the gases that they need, the oxygen, the carbon dioxide that are necessary. And it's these stomates that allow those gases in. And the guard cells, which open and close the stomates. So there's the various layers of the leaf. Now those stomates, we sometimes call them stomates or stoma. The stomates and the guard cells work to help balance letting carbon dioxide in, which is necessary for photosynthesis, with preventing water loss, which is obviously could lead to the dehydration of the plant. And so those guard cells, they can open and close. And generally, the stomates open during the daytime because what's happening in the daytime? Photosynthesis. So that means the cells need what? Carbon dioxide. Okay? And so to allow that carbon dioxide in, those stomates, they stay open. Okay? But at nighttime, there's really no photosynthesis happening. And so what will happen is at nighttime, those stomates will close. That prevents water loss because when those stomates are open, there's water will evaporate and move through them, and the plant will lose water. So they open and close depending on conditions, and the way they do that has to do with osmosis. So if we look at a couple pictures here. So here what we have, these two things that look kind of like lips, those are the guard cells. The stomate is the opening that's in the middle. Okay. And the guard cells have some chloroplast in them. So during the daytime, when light is shining on these guard cells, what are those chloroplasts going to do? What do chloroplasts do when they're exposed to light? Go through photosynthesis. Okay? And they're going to make what? Well, no, the whole process, what's the process of photosynthesis? Ends up making what? Glucose. So they're making glucose, a type of sugar. What happens then is because of osmosis, where is there a higher concentration of water? In here in the guard cells, which are making a lot of sugar, or out here in the surrounding cells? Out here. So water, because of osmosis, flows in and swells up these guard cells. Okay, when they swell up, they form this crescent shape and they open up. So that's in the daytime. Okay? They bulge away and they open up the stomate. But at nighttime, is any sugar being made here? No, that sugar stops being made. It's used as energy, and then that process reverses. And now these guard cells, they lose water and they kind of deflate and they close up that opening and it shuts down. And so now water can't evaporate out, but at the same time carbon dioxide can't get in. Okay? And again, you see this is what they actually look like. They look like sort of lips. You can see inside of them they have chloroplast. And when the guard cells are open, the stomate is open here. When the guard cells sort of deflate, they close up the stomate and materials can't pass through. So that's how the plants balance water loss with the gas exchange that's necessary for photosynthesis. Are any questions about that? All right, that's all we need for notes today.